This is Additive SceneManager. It's a tool for loading scenes additively and asynchronously, which mostly we call world streaming. Both in the inspector and in the game, we get a list of scenes that are currently loaded, and as I go between the rooms, the loaded scenes additively and asynchronously load and unload themselves. This tool will help you if you want to create a seamless world that loads and unloads as your player travels through the world, or if you're working with SceneManager, load scene async, and you're loading scenes additively, or you want a tool that helps you see exactly what's going on with the async operation of level loading, this package can make life much easier. You can define scenes that load at the start of the game, such as the player, the camera, the sun, and perhaps a main menu or the first level. And then you define persistent scenes that cannot be unloaded by the onload functions. So as I travel throughout the rooms, I want them to unload, but I don't want the player or the sun to unload. You can see what scenes are currently loaded and which one is the active scene. In game, the active scene is shown with an asterisk. You can click the minus button to unload the scenes. There's an option to show the in-game UI. So when you build the game, do you want to see the in-game UI or not? And this helps you see what's going on with your additive scene loading once you've built the game and you're running it. Now here, the three of them have a yellow status. This means that the async operations allowSceneActivation boolean is set to false. So it loads up to a progress of 0.9 and then it stops. The scenes that are yellow have loaded up to 0.9% and they're ready to be displayed. Pressing the plus button here will set the allowSceneActivation boolean to true, and that scene will load. After that, the icon will change to a minus, which of course means onload the scene. You can easily set the background loading priority, which is how much time the main thread will spend on loading. And there's also a button to bake light maps on all open scenes. So if I had a bunch of scenes that all share a similar lighting, we can open up all of those scenes and then bake light maps on those. There's a comprehensive scripting reference, so you can find all of the classes here. So for loading and unloading scenes, let's take a look at the scene controller script. In the scene controller script, we have multiple functions for loading scenes, unloading scenes, reloading scenes, activating scenes, which is setting the allowSceneActivation to true, and we can easily show or hide the in-game UI. Everything is fully documented, so if you want any help at all on how to use the functions, this should make life quite easy. In the demo, each room has a trigger setup that covers the entirety of the room, and it has a component added called the additive scene trigger. The additive scene trigger tells us which rooms or scenes are visible from this one. So this room only has one doorway. The only room visible from it is room B, this room up here. However, from room B, there are 4 doorways. So 4 visible scenes, which are added here, scene 1, 2, 3, and 4. Scene 0 will always be this game object's own scene, and so it's grayed out. You cannot reorder it. It'll always be at index 0. So when I enter into this trigger, these scenes will become visible. When I enter into this trigger, these scenes will become visible, and so on and so forth. Additive scene trigger is a very simple script, and the loading and unloading of scenes happens here. For the load scenes function, we can provide either a list of additive scenes or an array of scene names. There's 2 more options, allowSceneActivation. And this is, of course, the async operations allow scene activation. It's set to true by default. And the next one is the index of the scene that we want to be the active scene, which by default is set to -1, which is do not change the active scene. So on each additive scene trigger, its own scene is on index 0. So if we are to provide this third parameter and say index set active scene to 0, now because I'm in room A is the active scene. If I go into room B is now the active scene. So that third parameter is the index of which scene you want to become the active scene. In this case, I want the sun to be the active scene, so I'm just going to omit that third parameter. And allow scene activation I've set to true, but now I'm going to put it to false. Now what's going to happen when I walk into the first room is the 3 scenes are going to load, but they have the yellow icon on them. They're stuck at the 0.9%. So they won't become visible or active until that allow scene activation is set to true, and then they'll go ahead and load. Now it's important to note that when these scenes are queued up with a yellow status, that none of the other async operations can finish until this one finishes. So right now I've walked into this room. That means this room should be onloaded. And it has been triggered to be onloaded, but until the loading of this scene finishes, it can't unload. So once we click the plus button, now that one can unload. And the reason why that happens is that I called load scenes first and then onload all scenes except the visible scenes. Now, if I change the order and I onload scenes first and then I load the scenes, now you'll see what happens is I'm going to go ahead and load these first 3 rooms. And when I walk into this next room, that scene unloaded immediately, but room E is still stuck at the 0.9%. Set the allow scene activation to true, and it can load. So it's important to know that the async operations are in a queue, and you may need to pay attention to which order you are loading and unloading scenes. I'm going to show one more example of that here in Start. I'm going to tell it to load room B, but allow scene activation is false. Room C, but allow scene activation is true. So this one should load automatically. So remember, room C should load because allow scene activation is set to true. But what happened is C is stuck and it can't load because room B was loaded first and its async operation has not finished. So room C can't finish its. It's also stuck at 0.9%. So what happens is if we set allow scene activation to true for room B, then room C will automatically load as well because its boolean is set to true already. And the same thing's happening with D and E. E is set to true, load automatically. D is set to false. So because D hasn't finished loading, E can't finish either. So set allow scene activation to true, and E loads automatically. So this tool gives you a plethora of scene loading, onloading, and reloading functions, an inspector to easily define scenes that you want to load at the start of the game, persistent scenes that are not unloaded by the scene controller onload scene functions. And it gives you an easy view and control over the scenes that are loading and what stage they're currently at with a handy in-game UI so that for your internal testing, you can easily see what's going on with additive scene loading in your game. In the next update, we've got scene groups, so you can create your own groups, such as the persistent scene group. The asset is fully Unity 6 compatible and is built with UI elements. and is coming up to 10 years on the Asset Store with a 5-star rating. So if you need a tool to help you with world streaming and level loading, check out Additive SceneManager.